Welcome back. It's Finrod, y'all. This is probably the title of the video you're watching right now. Just kidding. No, welcome back. Today we are here to talk about a bloody picture again. The first released Amazon, official Amazon picture for the new, we still don't have a name show, Lord of the Rings show. I have a fabulous and wonderful guest who agreed to do this today with me. Don't worry, it won't be a long one, people. It is Dan from Voice of Geekdom. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Helen. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, as we said, today we just want to talk about what this implies for the show. You know, we want to do a little fun guessing game, what we could see knowing now. Again, this is obviously not officially announced by Amazon, but, you know, Fellowship of Fans reported it. I was there on his stream. Check it out if you want to know. There were other fun YouTube creators on that, and we had a discussion when he released it last week, and I think he sounded pretty sure, and he is actually almost never wrong with his inside scoops.
I was listening live when it premiered, and I think you said to him that you tried to question this, and he was like, "No, Helen, I'm 100% sure."
Yeah.
And I've known him for a while, and I know a little bit about how he does get his scoops as well, because I was part of his private Discord server before he opened it up to the public. So I'm pretty confident in his credibility.
No, 100%. I'm not.
The OneRing.net also tweeted it. I think they actually kind of had knowledge of this too, but they were told not to talk about it. Is my theory, because they tweeted about it just as he was about to release his premiere, so they kind of
which is a bit shitty, but let's not talk about that anyway. If you have information, tell it to the world. Don't make it 2 minutes before somebody goes live. That's weird, that's shady, but again, I'm not saying anything.
We're not getting into the politics of it, but
no, this is not my war to fight. I'm the clueless fangirl. I don't care about the politics of the world.
But I only brought it up because I think that lends credibility to it, because it seems that they knew as well. So we don't know for certain that it's Finrod according to Harry either, but it just almost certainly is Finrod, because Galadriel's brother, it's not going to be Angrod, is it? It's
no,
it's going to be the famous one.
Oh, definitely. And let's discuss this, why we do think it will be Finrod. So first of all, it is, I think, important to understand. So this house of the Ñoldorian kings and princes and princesses, right? So there is the OG Ñoldor king, who's Finwë. His first, marriage was with an elf named Miriel. He had one son, Fëanor, who will be very, very important, who is very important to the Legendarium. He had 7 sons. That is not so important right now. The important family tree is the other side of the family tree, the second marriage with said Finwë and the Vanyar princess Indis. And they had 4 children. Amongst those was, I think the eldest one was Findis, a daughter. Then we had Fingolfin, the eldest son. Well, second eldest, but the eldest of that line of the Ñoldorian princess.
Who we covered the last time I was on the channel, so
we did.
People know him.
We did, exactly. If not, check it out, people. Then we had Irime, another daughter. My headcanon says she is Glorfindel's mom, by the way. And then we had Finarfin. Finarfin is the father of, again, 4 children. Finrod, Angrod, Egnor, and Galadriel. So that makes Finrod the eldest siblings of the youngest son, basically, of the High King of the Noldor. His father, so Galadriel's and his father, didn't accompany the host of the Noldor, not fully. He started, but then he came back. But again, this is a long topic. We won't go into this, but it is important to know that you must understand that Finrod's and Galadriel's father didn't go to Middle-earth. He turned back. He pleaded with the gods for forgiveness because he saw their mistake in leaving the Undying Lands, killing elves, doing really bad things. And so that makes his eldest son, Finrod, who we're talking about today, actually the head of the family? Because this is really that part of the family, the Finarfin part of the family, right? So it's not Galadriel, it's not Angrod, it's not Egnar. And this is always very important to Tolkien, right? For him, this whole primogenital, all these kingships. When are you a king? When can you be the ruler? It's almost always the eldest son and this and this. So I think this seems to be very important, but it's not only that, it's other facts as well, not just being the eldest of that line. It's also...
Sorry, I just have to correct you on one thing. You said you said primogenital, which that's something else.
I know.
Primogeniture is what you're talking about, which is the laws of succession. Yes, that is important, and it's important to history, and it was important to Tolkien, and it plays a big part in various storylines that happen in the Second Age.
Yeah,
not just with the elves, but with the Númenóreans. It's
exactly. Yeah, and that gives you a kind of it basically gives you the power to rule, right? Very often, at least it does. So Tolkien believed in that. So he has a very important role. There is obviously an older line, the line of Fingolfin, his uncle, who's still alive. That whole line also goes to the full line, basically goes to Middle Earth as well. So he is not the oldest of the firstborn of the Noldorian princes who's in Middle Earth, but he later on will be, because, spoiler, a lot of them die.
Yeah, so Finrod is going to feature in the show, is basically the headline that we should probably focus on. So what do we think his role is going to be? I've got two theories, I think, Gish. We were just talking about this before we started, which the first one is the idea that well, clearly this is a prologue sequence. We said this before on my channel when we originally broke the image down, and it's pretty obvious that we're not going to see the two trees for much longer than the opening episode or two. But if Finrod is going to be a character within the show, then that means that this is after his death, that we're going to see him later on, and it's possible that he would have been re-embodied and could play a role somehow in the storyline. There's no canon to indicate him doing anything after returning to the West, but they could invent storylines that he takes a part in. We know that elves from Tol Eressëa, for instance, visited Númenor. We know specifically that messengers from Manwë visited Númenor when the Númenóreans were at risk of rebelling during, I think, Tara Tanamir's rule. You might be able to correct me, but that was the part of the Akalabeth when the Númenóreans were starting to question their mortality and growing jealous of the Eldar.
And the days darkened.
The days darkened and the shadow fell on Númenor. And this was when they were starting to... This is foreshadowing what happens at the end of the Númenórean storyline when the Númenóreans do try to invade. And it doesn't go well for them. But the point is, messengers visited Númenor at that time, and you have to think, because Tolkien doesn't name those messengers. My original theory that I had on Twitter, that was a tweet that kind of blew up at the time. I made a very long argument and a tweet thread, was that figure could have been Eonwë, because he's the herald of Manwë. So that's a character that we think could well show up in the show, because I mean, just to give a summary of my argument, he's the character that we last see Sauron with before Sauron becomes the Dark Lord. So it's a character that you might well want to see in a prologue. And that's also a character that might show up again as a messenger from the West. So that was my theory about him, but they could use Finrod in that kind of role.
They could give him that role, yes, definitely. And it would be the link, of still connecting, because we need that connection. They need to tell the story, Again, this is this whole rights issue, but I do think they have more rights than we think, because everything they basically, show us, and the few things they do is all like, what? We never thought that's possible to see. So anyway, but
I still haven't gotten over the trees, and it's been a couple of months now. So
yeah, well, accept it then. Move on. No, just kidding. But yes, it is important to have that linked to the Undying Lands to explain this whole thing, because this is where this comes from. This leads to the downfall of Numenor, them, knowing, well, there's an island basically, or a continent of elves, and this sounds very suspicious because Sauron then later tells them all the lies, that you go there and you don't die. This is all about, them wanting immortality, them wanting what God didn't give them. He just gave it to the elves, and they see that as a negative thing. The elves, on the other hand, and especially Finrod, and this is really interesting, actually sees it as a gift, which is really cool to know. There's a very interesting dialogue with a mortal woman who's actually in love with his brother, blah, blah, blah. And they talk about death and immortality, and it's really interesting. But anyway, he is the link, not once but many times, to humanity, and I think that is also an important characteristic of him, because you need to understand that it is not given that elves and men get along, or they even know each other, or they have a friendship. Look at what happened with the dwarves and the elves, right? Not all creatures and cultures and tribes in Middle-earth get along with each other.
And look at how he died. He died in order to rescue a man who was in love with an elf woman. The most famous union between an elf and a woman and a man. Excuse me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so he is very often the link. He basically discovers in the Legendarium mankind, right? He sings to them. You feel the love he has for the humans. And then, just imagine him doing this prologue. We will get to what we think the prologue will be about. But imagine him, having all this love for men, and then seeing basically the downfall of Numenor, and all these men who looked so promising in the beginning. He gave them their word. They aided him. They rescued his life one time. They worked for him till the end of their lives. They became heralds and of him. And so this love between Finrod and mankind, and then seeing them, basically drowning their own island because they became so proudful, and it went really bad. That is an interesting thought, I think.
Having said all that, it may well be that we only see him for about 5 seconds and that's the end of it. But I never said this when we recorded originally, when the photo came out, but my number one theory about that character actually really was that was going to be elf number 3 in the credits. That was just going to be an unnamed foreground elf. We were told that it was an actor. It wasn't a CGI character. We were told that when the picture came out. But
and I really don't think that that wouldn't marketing.
No, but we know that's not the case now. But but it's Finrod, which is just nobody really predicted that.
No, and. No, and the other really cool thing is he's not just the link to humanity, he's the link to Sauron, because what happened? Do you want to tell the story?
We can't tell the whole Beren and Luthien story, but
no, oh my god, no.
As I say, Finrod was under oath to Beren. He was under an oath to Beren's father originally. There's a story behind that, but Beren cashed in on that oath and presents the ring of Barahir. The ring of Barahir, which we see in the Return of the King movie, actually.
Aragorn wears it, yes.
Aragorn wears it, which is, a reference to the books that film people might not have got when they saw that in the film.
No, and just
but it's a great, as you guys said on your podcast with Fellowship of Fans, it's a great prequel sort of moment that explains that to people who aren't lore experts.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see that ring at some point. And if we see Finrod, it might well be something that we'll see. That ring is passed down through the Númenórean line as well. That ring gets passed to Silmarion, but from her father as an heirloom, and that gets passed down through that line, which is why the kings of Arnor end up with it.
Yeah, and it's really cool because he brought the ring from the Undying Land. So maybe if they zoom in the picture later on when we see more, he's probably wearing the bloody ring, right?
Should be,
Because
shouldn't he? Yeah.
yeah, because it is said he brought it from the Undying Lands, and then it made it down the line, and that it's cool to have a cameo, of something and that is really important, and again that connects elves and mankind. Yeah,
it's like in the movies you see Narya in the very final scene at the Grey Havens on Gandalf's hand, but they never say that. But
No.
if you know the books, you know that he's one of the holders of the Elven rings.
Yeah.
I do want to just talk about another possibility, actually.
Yes.
Though, because so I said I had two theories, and something just occurred to me while we were literally starting recording. Was you said Galadriel has how many brothers? Three brothers, but actually in the Silmarillion version she has four, because there's Orodreth as well, who Christopher Tolkien later on said that was an editorial mistake and that he should have been a child of Angrod, I think. I think that's right.
Yeah. And he's the father.
But in that version, he's the father of Gil-galad, who is a character who we will certainly see in the show because he's the king of Lindon, which we know we will see Lindon.
Yeah, and we even saw Gil-galad in the prologue Galadriel gave us, right? So we saw him there. He was fighting amongst the men in the War of the Last Alliance.
So there's a slight possibility that could be who we're seeing, but I don't think that's likely.
That would be too much to explain. It's really easy, to really be fit, to have it, as Finrod, because the thing is, again, he's the link to Sauron. Let's finish that storyline maybe off because this is important. So he basically gave this promise, to mankind, and then they were in the tower. Sauron captured them. They sung a really cool. Again, I don't think we will see that in the show. Maybe in however many years we will see a spin-off or whatever. That's what I really want, people. I want First Age stuff. But this is not what we will get. You are completely right. We won't get too much. But I do think the first two episodes are pilots, and I do think it won't just be a random guy telling a prologue and then never seeing him again, and people who are not like us, be like, who was that? Because Galadriel, later on, and you get to know her and you see her in the movies. It won't make any sense. It's just a random voice, voicing over the beginning of one of the greatest shows that will, of our time. So, nah, that won't happen. So, yeah.
But anyway, to finish the story of Finrod, he dies at the hands of Sauron in the tower, which was the original Minas Tirith in Beleriand in the First Age, which then becomes Tol in Galroth, which is the Tower of Werewolves, because Sauron in the First Age was the Lord of Werewolves, and that was his thing at the time. He was into werewolves.
He was into werewolves.
Not in that way. Not in a furry way, but
yeah. Don't forget about the vampires, please.
Yeah, of course. I know. You're
my kind. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, and it is really cool, that scene. Again, I don't think we will see that. Just for anybody who doesn't know, he basically frees himself from his chains and fights that werewolf with bare hands, right? And well, in the end, he dies of his wounds, basically, but he managed to kill that werewolf. And I'm always like, why haven't you done this before? Because again, he's the king of Nargothrond. He left with just a few, elves following him, aiding him in the quest for the Cimmeril, aiding Beren and Luthien. And one by one dies, and him and Beren are the last ones alive. And then, Beren is just about to be taken by the werewolf, but then he jumps basically in front of the werewolf. And I was like, you could have done that earlier, but anyway. No, just kidding. Yes.
I tend to think that we won't see that scene, really.
No.
It's just unlikely that they've got that much rights, but
no.
again, I keep saying I never thought we'd see this much. So who knows?
That's that's what I was saying. So okay, so we covered that. We do we agree it's him. We do think we will see a little bit of his life. Let's come maybe just for 1 second back to the prologue, because I think that is important. What do you think he will tell? Will he be? This is so what I'm.
Well, I don't think he will voice the prologue. I don't think we'll get Finrod narration. No, I think we'll get Galadriel.
Galadriel?
I think we'll get Galadriel's narration and his face.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
I think he'll be part of a montage and she'll be narrating it personally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Galadriel narrated the prologue of the Lord of the Rings movies, as you pointed out when as lots of people pointed out when the image dropped originally, and it's not as if we just see Galadriel for the whole prologue. We see tons of characters in the Fellowship of the Ring prologue. But
and this is how we were introduced to the world, right? She told us of the days of old. She told us what this is all about. And this is very, common if you think cinematic wise. Readers and viewers want something they can relate to. So you're completely right. It can be Galadriel. I personally still also think that it will be her voicing over, but she will also tell the story of her family. This is what I think this one will be about. And we know also in that show of Fellowship, again, check it out if you want to, he was telling us about this league. Again, I'm not a league channel, but he was telling us about they were crossing the Helcaraxe, right, the icy wasteland that connected the lands or the undying lands and the world once, and so this is really interesting.
Because Finrod and Galadriel were part of that group, so
exactly, yes, and so I really do think this is her telling. Let's say it's her telling us, these were the hardships my family had to go through, and this will all lead to Melkor and Sauron, and explaining why the elves even came to the lands. But I really do think they need to mention Melkor, because this doesn't make any sense. They can't bring it back to Sauron. He was not responsible for that. He wasn't even there in that role at that time they left. So it must be something related to Melkor. So I think we will hear of him, no?
I think it increases the chances that we'll see Melkor, yeah.
I don't think we'll see him physically. I don't think that. And I don't want to. I want them to keep this, I don't know, myth.
You want that to be in the show that we get in 5 to 10 years' time.
Yes, please. Yes. When they've learned how to do it and what the viewer wants, and then make the first age show, please. No. And bring the dragons and Balrogs. Yes. But again, so first 2 episodes, we will see, I do think we will see a lot of the first age and why the elves left from Middle-earth, to explain why they're there, why there are so many different kingdoms, what is Lindon, who's Círdan. We don't know any of that from the OG movies, but you need to introduce that, because this is literally the plot, that is the elvish side versus the Númenórean. You need to explain what are they doing there.
Yeah, it's really difficult to think how they're going to be able to do that in 10 minutes, which I think, again...
But 2 episodes is not 10 minutes.
No, I mean, this is what I was going to say. We, as I said to you before when you were on my channel talking about this, we know that, or we think we know that there's going to be a 2-episode sort of intro, prologue, 2-parter pilot. So that kind of
standalone
suggests that we're going to see quite a lot of this play out in a fair bit of detail, really. This is just gorgeous. I just love that idea, and I hope it happens.
And I do think they want also to see if people like that, and then this is this could lead to further spin-offs, because look, the first age is way more, and this is what I always say, is way more high fantasy than the second age. The second age, because it focuses more on the men, and there's less fantasy, less magic, elves singing magical songs with other magical beings and fighting them, and this is for you as a viewer, you need something more relatable when getting introduced to a world. And the Lord of the Ring movies had some magic with Gandalf, yes, and Radagast even later on in the Hobbit movies, but it's different. It wasn't boom in your face, just magic, but there will be
it was smoking pipe weed that turns into a ship, stuff like that.
Yeah. And the magic, because in a way, magic more and more left the earth the longer the ages got, when you got to the second, even especially in the third age, magic almost left because also the elves left, and they brought magic from the Undying Lands as well. They still had it in them and they lost it a bit over time and they then left, So I really do think it is better to get introduced to this world with a second age. I'm totally fine with that. But give me something. And you need to explain again. If you're completely clueless of all this and maybe just have seen the 3 OG movies, or not even that, you will be like, what is this? It's like bringing Tom Bombadil into the OG movies. People would have been like, what? So yeah, I think it's good to have this as a prologue, not the whole show, and then see how people react and if they want more. And social media is big, and Amazon apparently, I mean, look at this. Apparently Amazon has their eyes and ears out as well, and they see how people are reacting, and they obviously take notes.
Yeah. They're watching our videos, probably.
No, not mine, yours. Not mine. Right. Nobody watches a video of somebody called the Clueless Fangirl. Anyway, good.
Well, they should.
So anyway, Finrod. I think we both can agree. We believe that not just because Fellowship of Fens said it, but because it really makes sense. He's, the oldest of that line. He's the elder brother of Galadriel. There's the link to Galadriel, to her line, to her story, to the Lord of the Rings, because he basically was the one that made somebody like Aragorn possible, because he saved his very great-great-great-grandfather.
I told you it was a man as well. You told me, oh no, the Galadriel actress, she works out a lot. She has great shoulders.
Yeah, because Galadriel.
It could have been. You could have been right.
Yeah, it still makes sense that it's her. And this is what I was telling in the Fellowship show. It makes sense that because of the prologue, this is what I'm thinking. Because of somebody is voicing over, and I imagine her standing there in a flashback and saying, this happened.
Think about the Fellowship of the Ring prologue, right? I mean, Galadriel voices it, but we see a lot more of Elrond in the prologue than we do of her.
You're right.
We see her for like one shot with the ring on, and that's about it.
Yeah. And the war, she's talking about the war where she probably was not fighting on the front line. So, yeah. Good. Okay. Do you have anything else to add to why we're happy to see Finrod, and probably most likely in the first 2 pilot episodes?
Just that he's probably actually my favourite Silmarillion elf, possibly.
Is he?
Maybe. I mean, it's really hard to pick a favourite elf. He's the one that I think is one of the coolest between him and Fingolfin. I also really like Feanor, but for story reasons, I don't like him.
Oh my god, people, we brought down to the dark side.
I think he's an evil scumbag, but I like him because he's fun to read. But Finrod is one of my favorite characters in the Tolkien Legendarium in general. So super exciting.
Yeah, he's a good guy, but he's not boring. So that is the good thing about it. No, like really, yeah.
Oh, you wanted it to be Glorfindel, didn't you?
Yes.
Which, I think they're similar characters in many ways. So you probably pleased too, right?
Yeah, and they were re-embodied by the Valar, and they were given a job, basically. This is what we can see, maybe he is coming because Glorfindel died, then he was re-embodied and sent back to Middle-earth in the Third Age, to fight basically the Witch King and to aid Elrond and the good people, right? So he was re-embodied. Finrod as well, but we don't know of the Valar sending him anywhere. So will we see that maybe? It's really cool. I like your Numenor theory, and let's keep that in mind, people. Dan mentioned it here first. I like it. I'm totally pro for it. I like that, Sauron was responsible for his death. You can understand Galadriel, which we will see in the show, her and Sauron, clashing, because she obviously knows he killed her brother. When she learns and understands that this is Sauron and not Anatar, which she will, and she is very suspicious right from the get-go.
That is mentioned in the Lord of the Rings appendices as well,
Yeah.
I think. So there's a good chance that they have the rights to explain that at the very least, if not depict it. So we'll see.
Yeah, so that is really cool because it gives her a reason as well, not just, hating on Anatar for whatever reason. He killed her brother. So, yeah. Good. I like that. People, leave in the comments if you have more questions regarding Finrod. If you did we discuss him? No, we did not, right?
We haven't done a full length on Finrod at any point, though.
Yeah. If you're interested, people, let us know in the comments, because Dan and I are still doing that. And I hope you enjoyed this one. Please subscribe for anybody who hasn't done this to Dan, Voice of Geekdom, because what are you doing with your life if you haven't? Subscribe to my channel. There's, basically daily, no, not really, but a lot of videos coming. And thank you for being here, Dan. Take care, people. Take care, people. Bye-bye.